Well, today, like I started mentioning at the beginning here of the poetry, that I was going to get into a lot of different things. And last week, I titled a series of videos, America is Destroyed. And, a lot of people think that sounds really negative. And, well, if America's gone and it's destroyed, then what's the use? Why bother trying anymore to salvage her? But America is a lot more than the physical geography, the real estate. America is the people, the population of America. That's what represents America. So the people have not been destroyed, but the system has been destroyed, and that should be seen as not a negative thing, but a very good thing. It's just like a house that's been engulfed by flames and it's burned here and there and a few other places. You see, well, there's some of it still standing and some of it still looks salvageable. But you see, in order to start clean, you have to tear it down. So it's okay, this idea that the country is destroyed, that for all intents and purposes, we're on the rocks. Okay, good ship America is hard on the rocks. But a lot of people haven't realized it yet. They haven't felt the pain of being shipwrecked, of being basically floundering and unable to right yourself, kind of like a turtle on its shell. It's a mess, and it's important that people recognize the fact that this country is cooked. Okay, again, like the frogs in the pot of water. Okay, we've been boiled, we've been cooked. The nation's done. Okay, and there's a lot of people that are in denial because they have profited greatly from wrecking the country and continuing. They, imaginary continue to wreck it because, as far as I'm concerned, it's done. Okay, we need a complete overhaul. So the house has to be leveled. And this idea that it's destroyed is kind of a pipe dream. It's kind of wishful thinking on my part. Because I wish that the house was demolished and torn down so that it can be rebuilt. Okay? And this is reverting back to the original intentions of our foreparents, our forefathers, those that came up with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, those that had a vision of a nation of nations. This was going to be the epitome, the exemplification of the free world. Okay? That is the lot that Americans were endowed with. This is what was the vision of our foreparents, that we would live in true freedom and that we had these inalienable rights, and the greatest right was to pursue happiness. Okay, and this was something that couldn't be feigned. We couldn't fake it. Okay, because being happy is a very serious matter, and it involves a lot of different facets, elements, components, ingredients. And freedom is at the top of that list of facets and ingredients and components. We must be free, and we've got to see how we are not free. We've got to confess, we've got to admit, we've got to recognize it in order that we can ever find freedom again, have any hint of freedom, the kind of freedom that our forefathers, foreparents tried to give us. Okay? And it has everything to do with money. Money has shaped our society up one side and down the other to the nth degree. It's involved in everything. It's involved in contentment. And contentment is a very necessary element of happiness. I mean, after all, if you don't feel content, you can't be happy. If you feel financially enslaved, then you can't be happy. because you're not free. If you feel financially fearful, you can't be free, you can't be secure, okay, because security, that means being out of freedom, I'm using it in that sense, involves being absolutely out of fear. You can't have a little fear induced artificially and have to contend with it day in and day out and have the dial turned up so where it's ever increasing fear through financial burden. And that's what's happened here. You got to understand, it has everything to do with money. It's cheating the population, the regular everyday man and woman, working class, blue collar workers out there, the salt of America. Like they say, the salt of the earth. Well, that's who we are. The working class are the ones that keep the fabric of society held together. These are the people that keep the wheels of society turning. They're imperative to the welfare of this society, is the workers. Yet look how they are subjugated and marginalized. Okay, this ought not be the case. This is like Max Kaiser points out on the Kaiser Report with his wife Stacy. This is neo-feudalism. And it's much harder to swallow for the upright than feudalism that we can look historically upon, because we're supposed to be making some semblance of progress here, some modicum, an iota of progress. And we're not. We're reverting. We're going backwards. You understand? This all happened at the assassination of JFK. You could point to other markers in the past. Andrew Jackson tried to fight the Federal Reserve bankster class. These are gangsters. That's why they get this nickname bankster, is because they're gangsters. And who is it that said if you allow these banksters, this gangster class of bankers, to get their way, you're going to wake up homeless on the continent that your forefathers conquered? And that's exactly where we're at today. Okay, back to the analogy of the frogs plunked in the pot of water. The trick to not have the frogs jumping out of this pot of water is to lull them to sleep slowly, just with warm water. Turn up the heat slowly, and that's exactly what's happened here. Is that the heat's been turned up slowly, but at the assassination of JFK, that was the benchmark when we were plunked into the pot of water. We, the people of America for all intents and purposes, because America is the people of America. So we, the people of America, the frogs, were plunked in the pot of water at that time in 1963. And this handful of black hats, it's a critical mass, because a critical mass, the way I'm using it here, is just the amount needed to get the job done, which can be a very small number. I mean, out of a billion, it could be 1 or 2 or 3. It doesn't take many black hats, evildoers working within the establishment in the right key positions of power to get away with such a thing. And this is biblical level evil we're talking about here. Stuff that changes the course of history. Do you understand? America being the world's most powerful country in the nation. You see how this ties into Bible prophecy? This is what's going on here. This is some heavy-duty stuff. You've got to wrap your minds around this stuff to understand where we're at this point in history and how absolutely untenable, unnerving, unsustainable this paradigm, this scenario is. It can't go on indefinitely. And that's a good news, because what's going on here is a very bad thing. I mean, now that we're cooked at this point, somewhat 55, 56 years later, after the assassination of JFK, after we are plunked in the water, and they kept turning the flame up. How did they turn the flame up? This is about theft. It's all about money. How do they steal from the people? The regular, everyday, working class people. The labor class. The minimum wage workers who are doing jobs that nobody can refute. Nobody can deny. It's an inarguable fact that these jobs that minimum wage workers are doing are imperative. Look up the term. Imperative. Absolutely essential. Necessary to the welfare of the society. Do you understand? Society would collapse in whole, okay, lock, stock, and barrel, without working class people, unskilled workers that keep the wheels of society turning, the glue that holds the fabric of society together. These are the ones that have been picked on and chosen to trample under hoof by these monsters and to steal the wealth of the nation. And it's trickle up theft. It's harder and harder to enter the middle class. Home ownership, realizing the American dream. Okay, so I know what the hell I'm talking about here. What was the purpose for setting up a minimum wage? Ask yourself that. Why did we have to have minimum wage laws? Why couldn't we just trust the employers, the bosses, the masters out there to just pay an ethical, reasonable wage to their workers, their servants, their slaves? We couldn't, because historically they've been proven themselves to be immoral, unethical, that they are insatiable, greedy slobs, a lot of them. They're unscrupulous. Do you understand? That's why we needed a law, a minimum wage law. But pray tell, what use is setting up a minimum wage and having this law if we're not going to have checks and balances to ensure the veracity of that law? And that's what I'm talking about here. Do you understand? It's been decades since I worked for minimum wage. Understand where I'm coming from here. Okay? I care about others as much as I care about myself. I'm compelled to be that person. I'm trying to follow the teachings of Christ. I'm trying to follow biblical precepts and principles of uprightness, of integrity and honor and reputation, and valuing my soul. And that's what I would recommend everybody else do too. And if you do that, you'll see what I'm talking about here. This is wrong. It's immoral what they've done, what they continue to do, stealing the wealth of the workers. That's what they've done here. Do you understand? They create the needs for a social welfare state. They manufacture poverty. It's planned austerity. They're imposing austerity upon the public. This is what they do. This is all they've got to give us, is poverty, misery, oppression. Okay, if that sounds like an archaic term, it isn't. Okay, because for one decade after another, year by year, incrementally, gradually, like the frogs in the water, they have allowed this thing to happen. They have been deliberately remiss at giving anywhere near equivalent, proportional, commensurate cost of living adjustments to minimum wage workers. Who can deny that? And who can justify it? You're evil if you try to justify. How can you? It's unconscionable. It's ungodly to defend that, to say there's any possible justification for doing that, or to deny that it's happened. All you have to do is go online and look at Labor Department statistics. Look at what the minimum wage was 55, 56 years ago. It was approximately $1 an hour. Let's just make it simple, round it off, and say it was $1 an hour approximately. Look at the buying power. Talk to people. Okay? Talk to people between the age of 60 and 80 years old. Find out, even though a lot of them might have been kids, okay, they remember what their parents were earning. They remember, you can look and see what the buying power of $1 was back then. You could purchase a home anywhere in America on a minimum wage job. Do you understand? $1 an hour. You could comfortably pay the mortgage on your house with that minimum wage job. Do you understand? Now, pray tell, you tell me what minimum wage would have to be in your community in order for you to comfortably be a homeowner, for your spouse to stay home and take care of the house, take care of the family, for you to pay all your bills, your insurance, your energy bills, your food, your car payments. and to have disposable income left over. What would minimum wage have to be today? Do you think this happened by mistake? Incompetence? Don't be a liar. That's disingenuous. That's intellectually dishonest. And if you're that kind of person, you're evil and you're on the highway to hell. So I'm not going to mince words right now. I'm telling you the way it is. Okay? I'm getting it off my chest because it is evil writ large. That's what we got here. We got the theft of the wealth of our nation. And what is a nation? It's composed of human beings, individual human beings.